Hey everybody, HomeSliceHenry here, and in today's video, I am thrilled to say that after weeks of doing daily incense with Roar of Time active, it finally happened. At long last, I was able to find a Galarian Moltres that was below 1500 CP. So, I definitely had to use one of my two Master Balls because Galarian Moltres is just a force to be reckoned with this season. And after using the Master Ball, I discovered that it's actually about a rank 500 or so for the Great League. So, today's video, I built it, and I'm testing it out with a pretty standard ABB team with Feraligatr and Gastrodon in the back. So without further ado, let's hop into the matches, and we pick up a terrible lead in the first match, leading that Galarian Moltres into Dunsparce. I save switch into the Shadow Feraligatr. Shadow Feraligatr can typically win the 1s and the 2s versus the Dunsparce, so even though it is a bit of a core breaker, Feraligatr can still do pretty decently. Opponent is going to switch out, sending in Malamar. Malamar, an incredibly cool pick. I fire off the Hydro Cannon, but they know they can survive it and get a farm down. However, now it's going to be my turn to farm down. As I bring in the Moltres, the opponent will be able to connect with a superpower and that will deal some pretty solid damage, but Galarian Moltres does have some pretty nice bulk to it. Opponent, they can send back in the Dunsparce, but when they do, I'm immediately switching out into the Gastrodon. In comes the Gastrodon. Opponent, switch timer not yet up, so they're forced to throw their energy. We'll have to see what do they have in the back. In the back, they have Talonflame, and this is really not great. I don't have Water Pulse, but I'm farming up a ton of energy and I'm bluffing like I do. So I go for the Body Slam and the bluff works. I get the shield, and getting that shield, maybe, just maybe, there's a chance. Body Slam is going to land opponent at 100 energy, so they're going to fire off their Fly. Fly will pick up the knockout. In comes the Galarian Moltres, and I think my play here is to try and Sucker Punch this Talonflame all the way down. Talonflame going for Fly after Fly. Their switch clock will be up, unfortunately. I'm not going to be able to get this farm down. In comes the Dunsparce. I quickly fire off this Ancient Power to force the final shield. If I can outpace, I need to throw this instantly, and I do outpace. I get to the Ancient Power. The question is, what this game comes down to, can I live and Incinerate? In comes the Talonflame. Yes, I do. I barely tank the Incinerate, and despite the terrible lead, I am able to take the win. Moving to the next match, leading Galarian Moltres versus Mandibuzz. Mandibuzz, a problem Pokemon for my backline, so I'm very happy to catch it on the lead here with the Galarian Moltres. They go for the Aerial Ace. One thing that surprised me, because of course this is my first time ever getting to use this Pokemon, is how bulky it was. It can really take some hits. I was very pleasantly surprised. They are going to fire off another Aerial Ace, and that's just not a problem for the Moltres whatsoever. Now I'm going to go for the Brave Bird. Let's get some damage onto this Mandibuzz. Brave Bird, double shielded. That tells me the opponent is going to be very, very weak in the back to Moltres if they're double shielding. They are going to send in Superior, so there's one Pokemon that's very weak to Moltres. I'm able to land the Ice Beam because they use both their shields on the Mandibuzz, and now I can potentially look for a farm down. So I will shield up the Frenzy Plant, get a farm down, and exit with some energy. Opponent, I mean, they definitely could send back in the Mandibuzz if they want to, and they are going to bring in the Mandibuzz. Mandibuzz, Dark Pulse, I'm probably not surviving, so I will actually use a shield, and I'm going to quick switch into the Moltres to force their energy. Aerial Ace, I don't know if it's going to knock out here. It barely does not. Can I hang on? Yes, I can! Shout out to the Moltres IVs, 1 HP and an Ancient Power. In comes Feraligatr to win charge attack priority and deny all of their energy. So Hydro Cannon is going to pick up the KO. In the back, my opponent has their own Gastrodon and this game is over. I can fire off the Hydro Cannon. My switch clock will be up. I can bring in the Gastrodon. Opponent realizes there's just no way to win the game and they will concede the match. Hopping into the next match, Galarian Moltres versus Shadow Feraligatr. In the 2-shield, Moltres can just fully farm down with Sucker Punches. Moltres, the damage output from this thing is just absolutely amazing. They're going to bluff an Ice Beam. I will respect it, and I get baited. That is unfortunate. Opponent is going to send out Diggersby, and I'm very okay with this. I get to launch a Brave Bird at the Diggersby. It connects, and in comes Gastrodon. Gastrodon, this is a little bit of an awkward spot to be in, purely just because I don't think I can Body Slam and farm down. Diggersby is very bulky and Body Slam is absolutely awful now, so I'm just going to go for an Undercharge on an Earth Power, but I hit too many bubbles and it does end up KOing. In comes Talonflame, and this could just be game losing for me. I will fire off the body slam. Of course, I don't have water pulse, but I build up to it. Opponent actually ends up committing the shield, and they throw energy. Oh my goodness. If they had farmed down, I was probably just completely lost. I bring in for Alligator. They accidentally wait 2 turns instead of 1 to make sure that I don't catch. They go for the fly. They bring in their own Gator. I throw 2, switch, and a catch onto Moltres. Did I catch the Hydro? Yes, I did. Moltres farms down. I have a move on Moltres. I have a move on for Alligator. This game is over. Oh my goodness. Without that catch, it was doomed, but we're able to fight back and take the win. We move to the next match, and this is a huge core breaker. Galarian Moltres versus Guzzlord. I'm not sure how I'm going to be able to play my way out of this. This is really not looking good. I'm going to farm up past the Brave Bird, bait with the Ancient Power to try and force the shield. I do get the shield, and now I'm going to bring in the Feraligatr. My opponent already has 2 Brutal Swings. They're going to be able to put so much pressure on the Feraligatr here, which is very unfortunate. I will commit a shield because I have to get some value out of the Feraligatr. Opponent is going to switch out into Licky Licky, and I'm able to throw this on good timing. Good timing would be throwing 1 more in the move, but I wasn't sure if I lived the rollout or not. So to be safe, I am just going to throw this. Here I'm looking to switch, but my clock just wasn't up. Being able to snipe that down and deny the energy would have been great, but unfortunately I will have to take a Body Slam. Body Slam doesn't do a lot though. In the back is Talonflame, and I will mention until it gets fixed, these are Incinerate Talonflames. The animation is just broken, so it looks like it's Fire Spin. And yeah, at this point, I don't really see a way forward. I can try and bluff a potential Water Pulse, but my opponent's just not going to respect it this time, unfortunately. And I just don't really see a way that I can win this game, because that's not going to KO. I can go for a catch here, catching onto the Moltres, but my opponent is going to go for what I believe is an undercharge to get extra farm on the Guzzlord. This game is just unwinnable, so I will resign. Moving to the next match, Galarian Moltres versus Azumarill. Bad lead for the Moltres. Immediate save switch into the Shadow Feraligatr. Shadow Feraligatr does have a great matchup into Azumarill. I could throw instantly on 5 and it would be on good timing. However, what I want to do is I want to have residual energy. So that way if my opponent switches out, then I can effectively punish it. I know that I live a play rough, so I am going to no shield. They are running Ice Beam and Hydro Pump. You have got to be kidding me. I haven't seen a non-play rough Azumarill in ages. But sometimes you do see interesting things in the Go Battle League. Opponent needs to Dark Pulse to pick up the knockout. Aerial Ace will not do it, and they will go for the Dark Pulse. I'm going to bring in the Moltres right away. I want to get rid of this Mandibuzz. I cannot have this Mandibuzz free and around to mess up Gastrodon's day. They can go for Aerial Ace after Aerial Ace. That's fine by me. I'm just looking to farm up just shy of 100 energy, because that way I can go for an Ancient Power into the Mandibuzz and a Brave Bird into the Azumarill. I'm just shy of the Ancient Power plus the Brave Bird here. Should be 1 more Sucker Punch. There's the Brave Bird as Azumarill re-enters the field of play. So I launch the Brave Bird. Opponent is going to use the shield. In comes Gastrodon in the back. Opponent has their own Gastrodon. And this game's going to be interesting. They go for a Body Slam there, so that way they're able to get the turns back. If they let me throw first, then I can deny a full sneak. I'm full sending the Earth Power. I want to guarantee this final shield or provide pressure. They do give up the final shield. This is going to be a tricky endgame, but I think I can win it with Moltres. So what I'm going to do is I am just going to save 2 shields for Moltres and say, you can't fast move me down. Body Slam is going to land. Switch Clock is up. In comes the Moltres. Opponent responds with the Azumarill. I farm up as much as I can. Brave Bird will be able to pick up the knockout. My defense is now -3. Their Mud Slaps are double resisted. Sucker Punches dealing massive damage, but they barely hang on. This game will be a tie. So, unfortunately, couldn't quite get the win, but we will take a tie. In the next match, going up against Zweilous, and look at the spice from Zweilous. He was the first legend in the world this season, and he's running an insane core breaker to my team, as he's leading with a great league Hydreigon. Hydreigon, of course, is Brutal Swing, so its pacing did improve this season. Now, Hydreigon is going to be able to outpace the Moltres. So if I shield, I have to double shield. So I'm just going to let that through, bring in the Gastrodon, and my opponent is going to switch out into Azumarill. Azumarill makes sense as a core pairing there, because realistically, you're going to need a lot of bulk to pair with something as glassy as Hydreigon. Hydreigon, this is going to be very tricky though. I'm just going to tank the energy here on the Gastrodon and then switch in the Feraligatr. I need energy on the Feraligatr if I'm going to win this game. My thought process here is I should be able to shield once and fully farm down, and that amount of energy can just overwhelm the Hydreigon. So I am looking for the farm down. Opponent is going to switch out into their own Feraligatr, and I will immediately fire off the Hydro. Hydro Cannon is going to connect. I'm looking to farm up, going for another Hydro Cannon, not wanting to risk potentially playing to a CMP tie that I don't win. I'm able to pick up the knockout. In comes Hydreigon. Hydreigon will go for the Brutal Swing, and now my switch timer should be available. So I can bring in the Gastrodon, threaten a farm down, and that's going to force my opponent to throw energy. So I waste the energy, but I'm just looking to farm everything down. Opponent is going to switch out into a Azumarill. I'm at the back-to-back Hydro Cannons. Azumarill has the charge attack loaded. So I click the Hydro Cannon, I deny the energy, and now it's going to be a race of fast moves here. Shadow Claw versus Dragon Breath. Feraligatr versus Hydreigon. We overcome that counter, and we're able to take the win. But the tough leads for Moltres continue, now leading into a Powder Snow Alolan Sandslash. In comes a Shadow Kanto Marowak. Wholesome's team is a team that I have featured on the channel before. I know what he's going to have in the back. It will be his own Gastrodon. Here, I was honestly quite surprised that he didn't end up throwing a Mud Bomb to potentially try and force a shield, but it looks like he's just going to go for the full 2-shield farm down and just leave with just scores of Rock Slides to fire at the Moltres. Moltres, I'm going to have to tank one. So I'm going to let the first through and then just look for a massive Sucker Punch farm down. I'm feeling pretty good about how this game can end for me because I'm going to have the Gastrodon. In hindsight here, maybe I should have caught the Rock Slide. I think catching the Rock Slide would have put me in a better spot because there's only one time he could have thrown it. Rock Slide's going to do nothing to a Gastrodon, and then I should be in a winning position. But I don't, so now it's the Zero Shield. I fire off the Brave Bird. That's going to do some nice damage. In comes the Gastrodon. Opponent is going to bring in their own Gastrodon, and I will fire off this Earth Power. Earth Power will deal substantial damage here. Earth Power is going to connect, getting my opponent very low. My opponent will go for the Earth Power. I am the rank 1 Gastrodon, but look at this. I'm actually lower than them, so I get farmed down. My Moltres farms down the Gastrodon, but I fall short of the Ancient Power. If I caught the Rock Slide, in my view, I was just in a winning position. I would have saved energy on the Moltres, I would have still had a shield, and I would have been fine. But unfortunately, I didn't see the win con until it was too late. Another Azumarill lead means I'm going to be switching out of this matchup. And again, I'm going for the exact same play pattern. I'm firing off this Hydro Cannon after 8 Shadow Claws. Considering I'm 1 turn behind, 8 Shadow Claws will be perfect timing. My opponent will fire off energy. I'm going to let this go. It is going to be the Play Rough. In comes Guzzlord, and Guzzlord is going to be met with an Ice Beam. This will do a lot of damage if it lands, which it does. The opponent actually lets that through. That's a bit of a surprise. I'm going to bring in the Moltres because my opponent can make a Brutal Swing, but they cannot make a Sludge Bomb. They're at 5 here, and it is 6 to the first Sludge Bomb, so it will just be the Brutal Swing. And that is very survivable for Moltres. Opponent can bring back in the Azumarill. That's fine. I'm just going to look to farm and get a ton of energy with the Moltres. Opponent throwing instantly to pressure a shield, but honestly, that's kind of okay for me. I'm going to fire off this Brave Bird, looking to punish a no-shield or get shield parity. They let it go. They get KO'd. In the back is Dugong, and this game should be a win. I bring in the Gastrodon. I fire off the Body Slam on charge attack priority. Body Slam is not a great move, but this play puts pressure on the opponent because they want to apply debuffs. And they know that I have a high likelihood of body slamming when they get their move. So here, they actually overfarm, anticipating that I would try and cap tie them to go for the extra. So they end up throwing on 5. They end up, oh, I thought they did cap tie me there. I didn't see one go through. I guess I must have just missed it visually. I'm going to shield. I'm very heavily debuffed here, so I'm just going to switch out into the Moltres to get a couple non-debuffed Sucker Punches because this will force their energy. And then one Mud Slap from Gastrodon will be able to secure the win. Going up against a ferocious competitor, Dilap, and oh my goodness, leading into Aurorus. Safe switch for Alligator, in comes Serperior, and this is really not off to a great start. I build up to the Ice Beam, bait with the Hydro Cannon, and he calls the bait. Oh my goodness, absolute disaster. I will commit a shield as he goes for the Frenzy Plant, but this is not looking good. I build up to the Ice Beam, I'm baiting again. I want to try and get that shield from my opponent, and I do get the shield. That's quite nice. Perfect counting from my opponent. He'll be able to pick up the knockout, but I can get nice farm with the Galarian Moltres. In comes the Moltres, but he's able to save the Serperior and bring in a Azumarill. Superior is very low though. I see a win con. I no shield, I Brave Bird, I Mud Slap all the way down, and I get way too much energy. I'm going to get a 0-turn switch here, which is great. So I can fire off the Brave Bird, look to switch, but I get a frame drop, and that means my switch is 1 turn instead of 0. That may not seem like a big thing, but that means that I don't sneak a Mud Slap there because I was 1 turn behind. And look at this. He makes a move on 1 HP that he wouldn't have gotten if the game worked, and I got the 0-turn switch that I'm supposed to. I should have a shield right now and all this energy, and with that, I'm just winning. But now, I'm just lost. I can't win the game, unfortunately. Aurorus will make the Weather Ball. I can barely survive it, but I'm just too low. I can bring in the Moltres, but Superior will make the move, and that's unfortunately a game that if I get that 0-turn switch, it looked to me like it was a frame drop that caused it, or if it was just the game being bad in general. But if I get the 1-turn switch there, that game is just a win. Hopping into the final match, Galarian Moltres versus Goodra. Even if Goodra goes for a Thunder Punch, I can survive it and win the 0, so I'm just going to let it go. And I call the bait. Oh, that is absolutely massive. And now I can fire off an Ancient Power. The threat of a Brave Bird is ignored. My opponent ends up calling the bait as well. I'm going to bank energy, try and snipe with the Shadow Claw, but Goodra is too bulky. Goodra able to hang on, make the Thunder Punch, and force my shield. In comes Azumarill. Azumarill... This is honestly not a terrible spot for me to be in. My Hydro Cannons, of course, will be resisted, but we've seen what Feraligatr can do to Azumarill. Feraligatr can absolutely crush an Azumarill as needed. Azumarill will go for the Play Rough. That will land. Feraligatr firing off this Hydro Cannon, and this will be getting that Azumarill deep into the yellow health. Can I make it to another one? Yes, I can. Barely able to hang on there. Make it to a final Hydro Cannon. Hydro Cannon is going to get them to 1 HP. I get the farm down with the Gastrodon, and whatever they had in back, it was clearly something weak to Gastrodon, as the opponent will resign the match. All in all, I had so much fun getting to run the Galarian Moltres. It really feels like such a powerful pick in this current meta. Mandibuzz feels like such a safe defensive pick where you're kind of just hoping to outbulk opponents, but the Galarian Moltres, its sweeping power allows it an insane flexibility that Mandibuzz just does not have. Whereas Mandibuzz, even if you're up a bunch of energy into Azumarill, you're never really flipping that. Whereas with the Galarian Moltres, if you're able to have like 100 energy, 2 Brave Birds, Azumarill is feeling that pain. I realized that for a while I've been gravitating more towards ABC balance style teams, so I wanted just to run a pretty standard ABB style team, so if people are wanting a pretty straightforward, easy to play team for a Galarian Moltres, then this is a very good option. Overall with the team, I went 7 wins, 7 losses, and 1 tie, so perfectly even in terms of my win record. There was the one game where, unfortunately, if I get the 0-turn switch, then I just win, so I could have been positive, but I'll take going even on the day, in and around 2,900 elo. I did end up losing 28 elo, despite the fact that I went even on the day, just because of down pairs, but overall, man, this Pokemon is so much fun to run, and I believe the Shiny is actually releasing later this week as well, so even more reason to get out there and do that daily incense. Anyways, thank you guys so much for watching. If you're enjoying the content, make sure to leave a like and subscribe to the channel if you haven't. And a special thank you as always to our members here on YouTube. The Sport Guys Fied is sincerely appreciated, so thank you guys oh so very much. And until next time, I've been HomeSliceHenry.